Welcome, Pewter Report readers, viewers, and listeners to a brand new edition of the Pewter Report podcast, Energized by Celsius. Hope everyone had a great weekend, and we're here to start you off the right way with the best episode yet of the Pewter Report podcast. And one of the reasons why it's going to be so great is that we got the man back. That's right. SR Scott Reynolds is back here with us. I'm your host, Matt Matera. Joined with me after a brief hiatus is the man that runs the place, Scott Reynolds. Scott, how are you doing on this Monday afternoon?
I'm doing good, Matt. And like you, I share the same opinion. This is probably going to be the best episode we've ever done in Pewter Report history. So it's cool that you guys are turning in and tuning into this episode. Hello, Pewter people. I'm Scott Reynolds, back from the Lake of the Ozarks, the Redneck Riviera. It was a fun weekend. I was out there visiting my college roommates, Chris Trapito and Mike Tarr. Hadn't seen those guys together. We hadn't all three been together outside of like a dinner, here or there. But we spent like 3 days together, boating, tubing, drinking, partying, all that stuff. But we hadn't done that really in about 30 years. So it was really cool to catch up from my guys from Kansas State. So very cool to be back. I fit right in, with my mullet, Matt. It kind of protected me out there in the Lake of the Ozarks. Not that I was going to get in a fight or anything, but the mullet does offer that protection.
Right, you give them the intimidating look to start off with, and they don't even want to mess. They don't even want any business.
I'm 50. I don't know if I'm going to be intimidating anybody, but what the mullet does though is it kind of signals to people in the Ozarks, "Oh, you're one of my people." I'm one of you. I'm one of your mullet tribe members. So.
It's funny, on Thursday's episode, one of the great Pewter people in the chats, they were saying I believe their direct comment was, Scott looks like Elon Musk. Would you care to comment on that?
Yes. It's funny. I get that quite a bit, actually.
That's what I said, that I think you've gotten that before.
Yeah, I get Elon Musk. And then with the hair, with the mullet, when I have a ball cap on, I'm like a dead ringer for Phil Mickelson.
Yes, so, that was the other one.
The only problem with those comparisons is really four things. For Elon Musk, I do not have his intelligence nor his technological capabilities. For Phil Mickelson, I can't golf worth a lick. And then for both of them, I don't have their bank accounts. But outside of those four things, I can totally see it. I can see where people are coming from.
I see it a little bit to a degree. Joe Griss here says Elon Musk and Dan Marino mix. What's so funny?
Can't throw the ball either.
When we were at the Senior Bowl and the Combine,
mm-hmm.
John Ledyard and Casey Hudson. Casey was with us at the Senior Bowl. We ran into Dan Marino multiple times. It was just one of those recurring themes of there's Dan Marino in the corner. So a little bit of a Dan Marino whatchamacallit. He's in the pantheon of Pewter Report history because we ran into him everywhere.
Yeah.
I think he's in the background of one of our podcasts at the Senior Bowl. You see him for like a brief second. So there you go.
So true story. I'll get into this because we have a little bit of time to kill. We're talking quarterbacks today, people. We'll get to that in a second. So when I did an internship for Buccaneer magazine back in the summer of 1994, my very first Bucs game that I went to was a Bucs Dolphins preseason game in Orlando. It was at the Citrus Bowl, the old rundown, dilapidated Citrus Bowl. It wasn't so rundown back then. This is 1994. But the Bucs played the Dolphins. This is Sam Weiss era. So I was young. I was like 22, 23 at the time, I guess. And, I knew we were going to be playing the Dolphins in that game. So I drove down with some Sports Illustrated covers with Marino on them. And, I was kind of a quasi member of the media at the time. I was not hired on full time. I was an intern. And what's the saying? It's better to ask for forgiveness than permission sometimes. Mm-hmm. And so after the game, I whipped those Sports Illustrated covers out with the Sharpie. And I caught Marino as he was walking down the tunnel heading towards the bus. And, and I said, Dan, can you sign these real quick? And he looked at me and he's like, you got a press pass. You're not really supposed to do that, are you? I'm like, I don't know, but can you sign these? And he signed them anyways. So that's the only time I've really ever asked for an autograph, like on the job, right? I've been professional ever since then. But I was an intern. I kind of got away with it.
Yeah, you're still learning the ropes.
Right. So the funny thing about that game too, though, was, again, this is my first time as a media member in a stadium. I'd worked at Kansas State games and sports information, but in the NFL level, this was different. And do you remember the old show Coach with Craig T. Nelson and Jerry Van Dyke? You know, it's before you, kid.
I'm sorry.
But it was a hit on ABC. I'm sure there's some people my age or older.
Yeah, comment in the chat.
In the chat, if you remember Coach, right? It was about like a fictional Minnesota team, a college team, but it was filmed in Orlando. It was filmed at the Citrus Bowl, and I guess Coach had just got renewed or picked up for another season, and so they were going to make the cast of Coach available to the media at halftime to do some interviews. Craig T. Nelson was there, Jerry Van Dyke, the whole cast. And so I'm looking for a bathroom at halftime, and this is like, seriously, like the Citrus Bowl is old and it's not clearly marked. And I'm just like opening doors. I'm like, where the hell's the restroom here?
Right.
And I open this, I'm like walking down this tunnel and I'm like, where's the damn restroom? I open up these doors. So open up a door. University of Minnesota. Well, it was University of Minnesota. I think it was Minnesota State or something, because it wasn't quite the Golden Gophers, but
right.
But I opened up this door, and there's Craig T. Nelson like right in front of me. It was basically the steps walking up to the press box from like the back side of the stadium or something. So I opened the door, and all of a sudden, there's Craig T. Nelson. I'm face to face with him, and I was like, "You're Craig T. Nelson," and he's like, "Yes, I am." And so I'm trying to blurt out something intelligent. And I was like, "I loved you in Poltergeist." And he's like, "Thanks." And he like walked right by me. It's like, he's there for Coach. I didn't really watch the show, but I mean, like, I knew of it. Right. And I mean, they even made an announcement. I couldn't think of Coach though. I should have said, "Hey, I love Coach, and all that stuff." And I was like, "Loved you in Poltergeist." Thanks.
It is funny though when you see someone and like you're not really expecting it, or it's like you build this thing in your head and then you go see someone, you're just like, hey.
Right.
Yeah,
that would be like me like going up to Roy Schneider and instead of saying like, "Hey, loved you in Jaws," it would be like, "Hey, I loved you in Blue Thunder," or just some obscure movie that he was in too. So anyways,
it's like seeing Sylvester Stallone being like, "You were great in The Expendables, man."
Yeah.
Like, not even mentioning like Rocky or
loved you in
Rambo.
Over the Top. So
it's funny you mentioned that. And when you say Citrus Bowl, that reminds me of, well, you said Citrus Bowl. When I think citrus, I think like orange. I think the Orange Bowl. I think of Miami. And that's where Jimmy G played his only Super Bowl, was in Miami. But also, along with that, makes me think of the multiple different flavors of Celsius. I got the orange pomegranate here. What
I'm rocking the tropical vibe right there.
Oh, very nice. So this is a great time to remind everyone that Celsius is the presenting sponsor of the Pewter Report podcast. And the thing I love about Celsius is the variety that they have. As you see on the screen there, tropical vibe, Arctic vibe, multiple different flavors, from the wild berry to the classic orange to the sparkling melon. So many places and flavors in between. They have 7 essential vitamins, no preservatives or artificial flavors or colors, 0 sugar, and it gives you that essential energy that you need, whether you're getting through your day in the morning, got a busy work day, whether you're going to go and pump some iron and work out later after this podcast, a lot of the times like Scott likes to do. It's perfect for that little pick-me-up to get you going, give you that extra boost, that extra oomph that you might need. So make sure you check out your local bodega or gas station or whatever it may be, because Celsius is everywhere, and you could save $5 by ordering Celsius off of Amazon.com. So go to Celsius.com, find your store locator, or order the drinks off of Amazon. You could set it up to 2 weeks, 3 weeks, whatever you want it to be, but Celsius is everywhere now.
Well, not quite everywhere, unfortunately. I couldn't find any Lake of the Ozarks. I looked on the store locator, and some of the places that it was like sparsely in the store or the stores over there at Lake of the Ozarks, and they were out. And trust me, when you start drinking Celsius and you get addicted to a Celsius, you don't have any for a couple of days. It sucks. I actually had to go back to coffee. I couldn't bring myself to buy another energy drink because I didn't want that sugar crash that comes with it. So actually I had coffee for a couple of days. So back to Celsius. I've actually had 3 of these now in the last 24 hours. So I missed it.
That's part of the road life, traveling all over the place. Sometimes you need that. I remember our road trip back from West Palm Beach, Celsius,
Right.
where we were running through them, which is great. So,
Yeah.
Shout out to Celsius.
Well, the cool thing about always doing Monday podcasts with you, Matt, is at 4:20 you do this cool thing called roll call.
Roll call.
And in about 9 minutes, I'm going to be putting up all of your locations. So wait until then. But at 4:20, if you're in the chat, tell us where you're watching, listening, viewing the Pewter Report podcast from. It's so cool to see not just the Floridians, right? Not just the people in Tampa Bay that are the Buccaneer fans, but the people that are, from all over the place, all over the country, all over the world. We love our international Pewter Report fans as well. So that's really cool. That's coming up in about 9 minutes. So stay around for that. And let's kind of get into a little bit. First, let's talk about the debunked news. We're going to kind of do a spoiler here for you. Jimmy Garoppolo not coming to the Buccaneers. I think the savvy Pewter Report readers, if you've been to pewterreport.com throughout the entire offseason, we have not even mentioned Jimmy Garoppolo's name. He's not an option. Even when Tom Brady was retired, what were we talking about, Matt? Kyle Trask,
Blaine Gabbert,
Gabbert, pretty much it. Maybe Deshaun
Watson.
Yeah, maybe Russell. Maybe they did their homework on that. Maybe Baker Mayfield, right? I mean, that's that was kicked around a little bit, investigated a little bit. Ultimately, he went to Carolina, but the reality of it was it was never going to be Jimmy Garoppolo. And listen, Dan Silio's from the Tampa Bay market, and he has not been a credible source when it comes to football. He just hasn't. And so when I first saw this report from Don Yee, I couldn't believe it. Now, Garoppolo shares the same agent that Tom Brady has, Don Yee. And I don't think that this would go down when Brady was in, it wouldn't be a situation where Brady's in the roster, Jimmy Garoppolo's on the roster too at the same time. And the thing is you look at Garoppolo, the reports coming out, he's not going to be ready for the start of the season. He's probably not going to be ready till maybe till the fourth or fifth game this season. It just didn't make sense. He's not a quarterback that's going to push the ball down the field. He's not a vertical thrower that is necessary in this offense. And you look at the 49ers, how do they win, Matt? What do? They run the ball and they play defense.
Scott, you can look no further than when and I sorry for cutting you off there, but you could look no further than when the 49ers went to the Super Bowl that year, the year before the Bucs won the Super Bowl. So we're talking the 2019 season. They too, like the Bucs, defeated the Packers in the NFC Championship game. A little bit different. The Bucs went on the road to Green Bay. The 49ers had a home game. Jimmy G attempted, I believe, 8 passes in that game. 8 passes. Yeah. I believe he completed 6 of them. So pretty good completion percentage. But that just shows you only threw the ball 8 times against Aaron Rodgers. Everyone remembers that game because the 49ers ran the ball up and down the field. So, yes, Jimmy G got to a Super Bowl, but it wasn't necessarily most of the things that he did. And
Trent Dilfer won a Super Bowl too,
Yeah,
didn't have a lot to do with it.
It's the ultimate team game. You'll hear you'll hear everyone say that.
Yeah,
but it's
Joe
funny
Flacco
because
as well.
Yeah, there were 3 things. Flacco at least played very well in that postseason.
He did. He caught hot. He was hot and had a little hot streak there.
Is Joe Flacco elite? The debate still goes on to this day.
Yes, right. Yeah. It's funny because my son Logan is a Ravens fan. Sorry, it's just bad parenting on my part. I take full responsibility for that. I tried. I mean, the kid has met more Buccaneer players. I bring him out. You've seen him. I brought him out Buccaneer training camps for years. I was like, the Bucs are my NFC team. Okay, whatever, Logan. But the thing is what I always kid him about is you won 2 Super Bowls with Trent Dilfer and Joe Flacco as your quarterbacks. I mean, you won them, can't take them away. But I'd rather have Brad Johnson or obviously Tom Brady rather than Joe Flacco or Trent Dilfer. And obviously those Ravens defenses were tremendous. That's why they won. And then you've got the Buccaneer defenses who certainly were good too, but they played with better quarterbacks in those games. I'm already hearing Jimmy G to Seattle. That makes more sense. It really does, except that they are in the NFC South or the NFC
division.
West. I mean, but man, it's like I just don't see how Pete Carroll is going to get away with Drew Lock at quarterback this year, right? In Seattle.
Well, some people are still hyping up Geno Smith. I don't know if you saw this, Scott, because you were on vacation this week, but the Wimbledon was going on in tennis, and I believe the U.S. Open, it's another big tennis event.
Yeah.
they were like, hey, like, come watch our show, whatever. And some Seahawks fan tweeted like, tennis isn't a real sport. And so they chimed back saying like, says the guy that's going to be watching Drew Smith for 17 games next season. And then he responded something like, what are you talking about? Like, Geno Smith could be our starter. And people were like, that's really your argument that you're either going to be having, you're either going to have Drew Lock or Geno Smith as your quarterback. Like, all right, you might have to go in another direction. But I don't know. You don't really see trades within the division all too much, especially at the quarterback position. But obviously when these rumors first came out, and our colleague Rick Stroud was one of the first guys to be like, nope, this is not the case. Like, if Jimmy G could throw a deep ball, this would be the scenario. But there were three things that initially popped into my head. The third one I'll save for when roll call gets here.
Okay.
And I'll talk about it when everyone's given their places. But the first one, as you already brought up, was the fact that Tom Brady's still in the building. And, we don't have to go down the rabbit hole of, did Tom Brady force Jimmy G out of town when they were in New England and everything like that? But there was obviously a lot of drama that came with that, whether it was warranted or not. There was drama and headaches and things of that nature that I don't think the Bucs really need to deal with again. And I don't think Tom Brady, who obviously has a lot to say, a lot of pull with this organization, even after only playing for 2 years, if he doesn't want Jimmy G here, then Jimmy G is not going to be here, whether he sits on the bench for a year behind Tom.
Well said. Yeah. Well said, Matt. You're exactly right.
My second one was that Jimmy G, while I understand there's a couple things to like about him, he can't really stay on the field much. Right. And I understand like a majority of his career he was a backup, but he also, the 2019 year when they went to the Super Bowl was the only time that he played a full season. Like, injuries have followed him everywhere, including this year. So do you really want to take a flyer on a guy that hasn't really proven himself while having enough time to do so? And he's not even healthy all the time. So I don't know. Those are a couple of things that popped in my head.
Good point there. And the other thing too is, listen, if we're being honest, Jimmy Garoppolo is a handsome fella, right? I mean, he's
very.
Yeah. But the thing is he's no Blaine Gabbert. I mean, let's just call it like it is, right? So, and I think that when you're talking about Tom, I mean, you can see the pictures, video, evidence right there. There's
laser focused on him.
Yeah, it's like wrestling. It's like when you tag your partner and then he gets in there and does little flips and tricks and whatnot. That's what's happening right here. It's like, all right, Blaine, tag, you're in. So I think that listen, there could be another quarterback on the horizon, and we'll talk about that after roll call for the Buccaneers. But it's interesting to kind of look ahead a little bit to 2023. We're going to be doing plenty of training camp stuff. And if you want to hear about the Bucs quarterback situation for this year, go on pewterreport.com. Check out JC Allen's position preview. He's got the Bucs camp preview. Quarterback positions up today. Running back position will be up tomorrow. So, yeah, I'm with you, Matt. I think that those reasons are valid. And when you're the quarterback and you can't stay on the field, you're not helping the team. And I think that's a very, very valid point you made. And speaking of points, it's that time where we're going to do roll call, and we're going to find out where you're at, Pewter people.
That's right. Tell us where you are watching this show from. As we said earlier, we have awesome fans in the state of Florida, but we also got a great group of fans across the U.S. and across the country. I remember seeing people from Brazil, from China, Finland, Germany, of course, and England. So please tell us where you're at. And Scott will start, as he just began, he will start putting the chat on the screen, telling us where you are from. And I want to get into my third point. And Scott, you kind of already just started talking about this with Blaine Gabbert. And of course, the other quarterback in the room, Kyle Trask along with Ryan Griffin. But the third thing that popped into my head when it came to Jimmy G, future potentially quarterback of the Bucs if Tom Brady's no longer there. The third thing, and maybe the most important, is if you bring in Jimmy G as your quarterback for next season, what was the point of drafting Kyle Trask? All right.
Yes.
And I understand first year was a redshirt type of deal. This year, we want to see that progression. We want to see him correct some of the mistakes that he had last year as a bright-eyed and bushy-tailed rookie. All right. Because this is the training camp where he has to at least make it a very close competition with Blaine Gabbert for the second quarterback.
That's right.
It's Blaine's job. And, there are some people saying like, oh, if he can't beat out Blaine Gabbert, like, what is he doing in the NFL?
Right.
I don't think that's the case, but he has to close the gap in terms of the margin of error between Blaine Gabbert and Kyle Trask. If the Bucs have one game to win and Tom Brady isn't available, yeah, Blaine Gabbert's going to be your guy. But if you bring in Jimmy Garoppolo and you still have Kyle Trask right there, it kind of goes back to what's this all been about? It reminds me of that episode of The Office when Michael finds out a rumor about Stanley and accidentally tells it to everyone. So he starts making up fake rumors about everyone else. And Creed Bratton goes, who said I can't scuba? He said, who said I had asthma? Because if I have asthma, then I can't scuba. And if I can't scuba, what's this all been about? And that's the scenario that the Bucs are in with Kyle Trask. I understand it was a second-round pick, but it was the last pick of the second round. Yeah. Essentially a third-round pick. But if you bring in this guy and you don't even really give him a fair shot between redshirting as a rookie last year, and we'll see how much snaps and playing time that he gets in the preseason this year. If you don't give him an opportunity to compete for the starting job next year or whenever Tom Brady retires, what's this all been about? Why is Kyle Trask here in the first place? So that was the third thing that I really thought about when it came to Jimmy G as the potential future quarterback of the Bucs.
Yeah, no, exactly. Well said. And we loved seeing the Netherlands, Canada, we had Alberta, Canada, Mexico in there. Points of interest around Florida, Maryland was represented. Leawood, Kansas was out there, my old stomping ground from Overland Park right next door. So very cool. Thank you guys for participating in Roll Call. We do it every Monday at 4:20. We love it. And we love you guys out there in Pewter People Land. We would be remiss before we talk more about the Bucs quarterback situation if we didn't remind you to subscribe to Pewter Report TV on our YouTube channel. We're getting close to 9,000. We'd love to be at 9,000 when the season starts. So you can help us out. If you're not subscribed to Pewter Report TV, it's not really a subscription, Matt. Not sure why they call it that because it's
just
free.
A heads up.
Yeah. Just hit the button. And what that does is that just means that you have free access to the Pewter Report TV channel on YouTube, and you get to watch all of our videos and stuff. You do that anyways, but just hit subscribe. And also hit the like buttons. When you do that to all of our videos, all of our content that Matt puts up, whether it's our Pewter Report podcast shows, whether it's the snippets and interviews from training camp or from press conferences, interviews, etc., every time you hit like, it helps our algorithm and gets us in front of more awesome Pewter people like you, more Bucs fans, and that helps our YouTube channel grow. So we greatly appreciate that. Please hit the like button as well as subscribe. So, it's interesting, Matt, because the Buccaneers, I think, got kind of a jump on the quarterback position a little bit, right? We saw this year, especially in Atlanta and with Desmond Ridder and then with Matt Corral in Carolina. They drafted a young quarterback, right? They've got a couple of guys in the hopper, not first or second round picks, even though, like you said, you're looking at Trask being an end of the second round guy. So he's almost like he's a day two guy. Let's just say that.
Yeah.
So that's interesting though, that you've got a couple of guys in the South that are going to be competing, and you look at the Falcons. They brought in Marcus Mariota, who was from Tennessee. That's where Arthur Smith was from as well. So I'm just wondering your thoughts on how those quarterback rooms shape up. We'll kind of talk about the NFC South first, and then we'll kind of get into the Buccaneers situation, because Kyle Trask is a year ahead of these guys in terms of knowing the offense, developing. And the funny thing is, these guys, right, you look at Ridder, who's in Atlanta competing with Marcus Mariota. And then you're looking at Matt Corral, who is going to be competing with Sam Darnold.
And Baker Mayfield.
And Baker Mayfield now in Carolina, right? I mean, those young quarterbacks drafted this year might see the field before Kyle Trask even does, right? Because the hope and the expectation is that Tom Brady plays every single game again this year. And we're not going to really see Kyle Trask until next year outside of these preseason games coming up.
Yeah, it's actually pretty insane when you think about it in that sense, that Trask, while having the most experience in terms of, I guess, reps and practice, will have the least amount of game playing experience. And we'll see, especially like Carolina, I don't necessarily see Corral getting onto the field unless they're really in a terrible situation. Because first of all, it's wild that Carolina has the first and third overall picks from the 2018 NFL draft. You heard that anywhere else, you'd be like, oh, wow, this roster's really got to be turned around and on the up and up. But that's clearly not the case. And I think we all assume that Baker Mayfield's going to win that job over Sam Darnold. I mean, we talked about it a little bit last week when Sam Darnold played against the Bucs last year. Remember, they played in week 16 and week 18.
Yeah.
The Bucs outscored the Panthers 73-23.
That's not good.
In those two combined games.
That's not good for Carolina.
Darnold threw for 2 touchdowns in 2 games, though. Yeah. And he was sacked, I believe, 6 or 7 times. So
yeah,
I think the ship has kind of sailed with Sam Darnold. Could be a formidable backup. But with Baker, I don't necessarily think Baker's going to be as bad as everyone thinks. I think he got kind of a bad rap because he played injured last year. But again, if you want to talk about the Jimmy G thing, Jimmy G got a lot of crap, especially recently from former Patriot teammates about that year when Brady was suspended and didn't play in the first 4 games. Jimmy G was like a game time decision to play against, I think, Miami.
Yeah.
Up until like Sunday morning was like, no, I'm not going to play. And obviously with teammates talking about it now, people don't love that. But Baker on the other side, playing with that chip on his shoulder, clearly playing injured.
Playing with a bum shoulder too.
Yeah. I think he can help the Panthers win another game or 2. I'm not saying they're going to be in the playoff discussion, but at least could be a thorn in the side of the Bucs, of the Saints teams trying to win that division.
Yeah.
I also think for Corral, it's tough for the Panthers head coach, Matt Rule, because he's in a situation where he needs to win right now, but the Panthers aren't there yet. You know what I mean? And I think Rule's a solid coach. Necessarily, sometimes the cards don't come out the way that you want it to. But you're looking at Corral, I think he only gets on the field if something drastic happens. Like Baker plays so bad and Darnold plays even worse, you know?
Right. Or one of those guys is injured and then the other guy that's healthy is not getting the job done. And then that's when you would see the rookie step in and maybe get a shot in November, December when the season's all but lost, right?
But Corral could end up being in a situation where he has to start all the way over because Rule could be done after this season. And they're talking about a new coach, a new offensive system. And I think that's terrible for a young and up-and-coming quarterback. We've seen it. Like Sam Darnold kind of had to deal with it. And
you know who else had to deal with that?
Yeah. I got another
Blaine
guy
Gabbert.
in the division. Blaine Gabbert too.
I mean, the first 7 years of his NFL career, he had 8 different offensive coordinators. That's not good. That's not the recipe for success. Plus, when you're playing, you start off playing for a team like the Jacksonville Jaguars, right? You're the 10th overall pick and you're the savior. You're the immediate franchise guy. I mean, it's look at Trevor Lawrence, right? I mean, he's not lighting the world on fire in Jacksonville, right? It's tough to come in to a really crappy team and try to win. I mean, Jameis Winston felt that pain for several years in Tampa Bay, right? I mean, it's just couldn't get the team over the hump, and part of that was his own undoing, right? I mean, he's been known to turn the ball over a little bit, Matt. That's what the scouting report is on this guy, although he hasn't done it really against the Buccaneers in those games against him. And I think that's going to be the key to victory when the Bucs play the Saints is try to get Jameis to revert back to the old Jameis. That's how you beat this guy.
Right. And, Jameis, to his credit, well, I don't know if it's to his credit, but someone deserves the credit. When Jameis, before he got hurt, the Saints were a winning team. Now, you could very much make the argument that it was a much more neutered Jameis Winston.
Yeah.
Jameis wasn't slinging the ball all over the place.
Right.
Like, it definitely reminds me. There's a game New Orleans beat the Patriots early last season, and New Orleans won that game because they got some turnovers on special teams and their defense did what they did. Now, obviously, they're going against a rookie in Mac Jones as well, but there wasn't really too many games. And I know the first game of the season, Jameis lit it up with like 5 touchdowns against the Packers, but the Packers were playing absolutely terrible. And Jameis didn't even have more than, like, his passing yards in that game did not add up to the amount of touchdowns that he had. You know, he had multiple situations where they were already in the red zone when they got the ball, or he didn't have to move it that much. So Jameis, I think there hasn't been a long enough resume of him showing that he can not turn the ball over as much, but he's played well against the Bucs, and he had a winning record with the Saints up until getting injured. So there has been a pathway to success for New Orleans, and it's up to Jameis to, you know, stay consistent with that for 17 games. I don't know if he can do that, but he's shown it in small windows.
Well, you know, kind of getting back to the Buccaneers, and TB12 Goat Man brings up a good point. It's funny because I saw Goat Man and I was thinking like Goat Boy, like the Jim Brewer, you know, like just getting, you know. Anyways, so Tom, only guy on this roster that can win a Super Bowl if the Bucs don't sign someone new at quarterback, then they'll waste Mike and Godwin's primes. Also, all the young talent on defense. See, I disagree with this premise a little bit because I think that and listen, Mike Evans and Chris Godwin played with Jameis Winston. Good, or I should say, great wide receivers can't make a quarterback great. It doesn't happen that way, but it certainly helps because if you don't have great wide receivers and you have a young developing quarterback, it is not going to accelerate the development at all. It's going to stymie it, if anything. And so I think that's the benefit, though. So I look at the glass half full in the situation. Whoever the quarterback is, Blaine Gabbert, Kyle Trask, or whatever's behind door number 3. And let's face it, I don't want to say it's going to be Sam Darnold or Baker Mayfield, but one of those two guys, right, Matt, is not going to be in Carolina next year.
Or both.
Or both, yeah, right. And the quarterback free agency class is not stellar next year. And I would be shocked if the Buccaneers drafted a quarterback in the first round, although Phil Jurkovec is a favorite of mine, not to the level that Blaine Gabbert is, but I love the Jerk. I think he's a perfect fit for what Tampa Bay does. So watch the Boston College kid this year. But my point is that I think that if you have a good defense that can help that quarterback, where you're not going to have all of that pressure on the right arm of a young thrower, or even like a guy like Blaine Gabbert who hasn't started in a bunch of years, and you're getting Gabbert 2.0 and you hope that he's a better version than Gabbert 1.0. That helps, Matt. Yeah. And we kind of like poked a little fun at the Ravens with Joe Flacco and Trent Dilfer. I mean, that's why they won the Super Bowl, because they had a running game, they had good defense, they had enough weapons to where essentially that quarterback was a point guard that distributed the ball rather than, a Kobe or a Mike or whatever, Michael Jordan that is the shooting guard that's responsible for the points. Right now, I mean, Tom Brady, he's Michael Jordan, right? He's the scorer, and he's got some Hall of Fame guys, I should say Hall of Fame guy. We haven't seen Rob Gronkowski back yet, but Mike Evans, we're going to pencil him in the Hall of Fame. Yeah. So I think it helps. So I disagree a little bit with the premise. I don't think that they're necessarily going to be wasted unless whoever the quarterback is just atrocious.
Right. And I think, let's just say for argument's sake, let's just say the Bucs go with Blaine or Kyle Trask next year. I can see the Bucs in a situation where they can get into the playoffs and make a run into the playoffs, led by the defense. Like, I truly, almost like the Titans teams recently, where you had Tannehill and he was comeback player of the year, and there was a lot of talent around him, from Derrick Henry to AJ Brown before he got traded, but there was weapons there. The Bucs clearly have that on the offensive side of the ball. The issue that the Titans ran into, and I could see the Bucs falling into a similar situation, is that they became one of those teams you had to either be within one score, or it's got to be tied, or you got to play with the lead, because as soon as you start going down a little bit, you can't really turn it around. You know, you can't rely on your quarterback to get you back into the game and score quickly. And that was an issue like when Tennessee went up against like Kansas City a couple seasons ago. Kansas City, when they just flipped the switch on offense and kept scoring, Tennessee couldn't keep up. And I could see that type of situation happening with the Bucs in a year from now if Blaine's their guy or Kyle Trask is their guy. I think Blaine could definitely sling it more, but then you're more susceptible to interceptions, things of that nature.
You're right. And the thing too is, let's listen. Jason Light is fantastic at splitting his view from the 2022 roster to 2023 and beyond. Right?
Yes.
It's like you got to have one eye on today and one eye on tomorrow as a general manager. And he does a phenomenal job of that. And I'll give you a great example. Leonard Fournette, and there was a little bit of mixed feelings in the building about bringing back Leonard Fournette at that price at $7 million a year for 3 years. Now, essentially, it's kind of a one-year deal. They can get out of it, but they like Leonard. And unless Leonard just comes to camp too heavy and rests on his laurels and doesn't live up to what he did last year, in other words, doesn't have last year's numbers or better, then you're disappointed. Then you might have to take a look, right? But they signed Leonard Fournette for 3 years, knowing that this could very well be Tom Brady's last year in Tampa. And what does Leonard Fournette do aside from run the ball? Catch it. If you do get into this, if you do get into these shootouts, if you do have a young quarterback, let's say Trask is the guy, or Gabbert's the guy, and he turns the ball over, a little bit more than you like, but you're in the game, but maybe you're down in the fourth quarter by a touchdown. Leonard Fournette stays on the field and helps you. He can run the ball, he can also catch it, and that's the exact same thing that they did with Rachaad White, Matt. So they've got a couple of running backs already on the roster that will be here next year. So if Tom Brady decides not to return to Tampa and they have to flip the page and go to a different quarterback, you've got Todd Bowles and his defense on one side. You've got Mike Evans. You've got Chris Godwin, Russell Gage. You've got some great upper echelon targets to throw the ball to. They hope they've got a young developing tight end in Cade Otton that can grow with the next quarterback. And then you've got 2 running backs that really can run the ball and catch it very well. So if you're in the lead, you run the ball, you run to win. You don't have to have a quarterback lead the league in pass attempts again like Tom Brady did and throw for over 5,000 yards like Brady did last year. You can get away with having a quarterback throw the ball for 4,000 yards, rely on the running game a little bit more. But if you're behind, if that quarterback gets a little loose with the football and throws some interceptions, turns the ball over, and you're down 7 to 10 points, you got 2 backs that can stay on the field and help you come back because they can also catch the ball. And that's something Ronald Jones couldn't do.
Very, very well said. And I think we talked about, too, that we're going to see a revamped running game this year because of Brady always plays well with the running game. But I think that's important to transition into 2023 as well, where you want to start with a good running game this year because you could bring that into next year if you're dealing with that other quarterback that can't do the things that Brady can do. Let's face it, no one can do the things that Tom Brady can do. But I think what he said was great, too, about Leonard Fournette and Rachaad White and Cade Otton, especially with the last 2 rookies. It's going to be very interesting to see how useful they are, obviously, with White as a runner, but also in the passing game and what Otton can do in the passing game. And if you wanted to, place a little bet on how many receiving yards Rachaad White or Cade Otton's going to have, you could do the over-under at Underdog Fantasy, but that will happen when the season gets going. Right now, you can get in on Underdog Fantasy's Best Ball Mania 3, and they're $10 million in prizes. Underdog Fantasy is the easiest place to play fantasy football. You draft your team with no in-season management, get the optimal score each week of the season, have a shot at over $10 million in prize money, as I just mentioned. Head to UnderdogFantasy.com or the App Store now and sign up with the promo code Pewter, and Underdog Fantasy will match your first deposit up to $100. Again, that's Underdog Fantasy. Sign with the promo code Pewter. And again, the overs and unders, I want to tell you guys about that. It's the easiest way to get some action in the NFL. You don't have to wait to the NFL. You could do it right now. I know there's not as many sports out there, but you could do it with baseball. You could bet on some of your best players to get a hit or your favorite players, maybe there's a team that you don't like and you don't think a guy's going to get a hit. You can bet the under on that as well. You just pick an over and under on your favorite or least favorite player stats. Win up to 20 times your money in a single night. Underdog keeps it super simple with easy-to-use website and mobile apps. You pick between 2 and 5 players to fill out your pick'em slip. Get every pick right and take home some cold, hard cash. Again, use the promo code Pewter. Get your first deposit doubled up to $100 by Underdog Fantasy. One more time, that promo code is Pewter.
That's right. That's good stuff. Getting ready to, and I did the pick'ems during the Tampa Bay Lightning playoff run.
Yes.
Didn't fare too well, but boy, the interface is so easy to use, and it's fantastic. I've had a great experience with Underdog Fantasy. The only problem is me just not picking the right players, Matt. That's it. It's my fault, not Underdog's fault. But I can't wait to do. We're going to be doing some Pewter Reports, Underdog Fantasy leagues. And so I think we'll each probably have a couple of teams, right? Like I'll have one, you'll have one,
Yep.
JC. So as we get into training camp, when we do some of these promos, we're going to be throwing out our email addresses. And then if you want to play against me, we can do a little fantasy league, and same thing with Matt, same thing with JC and Bailey and Josh and Casey if she wants to get involved too. So it'll be a fun way to kind of play against the Pewter Reporters. And I think also too, we'll probably do a Pewter Report league ourselves.
Yeah, we could do a ton of different things.
Just for the staff, just so we can have bragging rights, right?
And Josh was in one of the Pewter Report leagues, and now he works with us. So
right.
You never know. So make sure you join.
Exactly. So I think the Buccaneers, their quarterback situation is obviously going to be dependent on what Tom Brady wants to do. If he wants to come back for another year, then the Bucs will probably have him back. I'm sure they can probably find some cap room and probably make that deal happen, right? But I think that this is Tom Brady's last year. I don't think he's going to Miami next year. I don't think that Tua would be coming to Tampa Bay. There are already problems with him throwing the deep ball. He just is not. He's not what the Buccaneers are looking for. And the thing is, you have to remember with Todd Bowles, is his philosophy, his offensive philosophy different than say Bruce Arians? No, not really, because he knows that this offense puts up points. It just does. Even with Jameis Winston at quarterback, the Buccaneers were a top 3, top 5 offense in terms of total yards, points per game, passing yards, etc. So why would you want to veer away from that? This is a really solid offensive line. It's not going anywhere anytime soon. You re-signed Ryan Jensen. You got Tristan Wirfs on his rookie deal. They just acquired Shaq Mason. Donovan Smith, he'll probably be the next contract. I would assume that they'll keep him because they love Donovan Smith. So this is an offense that really requires a pocket passer, not some little 5'10" quarterback or 6 foot or whatever he is. This is an offense that you want a big pocket passer, 6'5", 6'4", 6'6". That's who the Buccaneers are looking for. And I mean, like these guys right there, Kyle Trask 6'5", Blaine Gabbert 6'4", 6'5". Same thing with Tom Brady 6'5". That's the look of the quarterback class right there. That not class, but quarterback room that they want. A pocket passer, obviously. Blaine Gabbert, the most handsome, and also the most fleet of foot. He's got more escapability. He's a better athlete. But Kyle Trask, certainly, and that's one of the things we noticed in the OTAs and the minicamp, Matt, is how much slimmer Kyle Trask was this year, and also how more fluid he was in the pocket. I think that the work that he put in with Clyde Christensen, with the training staff, to become quicker with his feet in the pocket and having a little bit more of a quicker, compact release. That's one thing that really stood out to me about Trask that really has me excited, not just for training camp, but really for these joint practices against Tennessee and Miami, to see how he does against competition that is not going to know which passing plays they're going to be running. Because in training camp, training camp is just a continuation of OTAs and mini camps. It's all it is.
Yeah.
And so the defense, the Bucs offense has seen the Bucs defense plenty of times and vice versa. So you kind of know what's coming. You know the tendencies of your players. You know what Carlton Davis likes to do and Jamel Dean and how Sean Murphy Bunting plays, etc. But when you go against another team for a couple of days in those practice sessions, that's really where you get a chance to show your stuff. And I think that's where I really want to see Kyle Trask take the step forward. See how the physical development with the more compact release, the quickness in the pocket, how that marries up with the intellect, where he's digested the playbook enough to where he knows where to go with the football.
Agreed. I think the most valuable time of this training camp will be those joint practices for everything that you said, the mundane going through the motions, not that you're going through the motions, but just seeing the same opponent to get someone different. It helps everyone, but especially for Trask. And you talk about just feeling more comfortable in the pocket. I think that's one of the toughest things to really emulate for a quarterback. Yeah, we've all seen the drills where they're throwing different medicine balls and pads, and this one with Ben Roethlisberger when he's just punching at the stuff. It's a pretty famous video. But I look at someone like Joe Burrow, who has only played 2 years, and he looks so comfortable in there and escaping, and even when pressure's coming, he still stands in it. I think that's so tough for a young quarterback.
Not quite as comfortable as Jameis Winston, right? Given all those videos that he does, right? Those are
what was the latest one with the bench press and
the Jameis,
the
Jameis workout videos are legendary.
Yeah, of course. Well, no one can beat him in that regard in the type of workouts. But that's some of the things that we saw with Trask was getting the ball out quicker. Wanting to see him throw better to his left side because it seems like he's got it down on the right side. Very sharp there. Needs to work on the left. But those are some of the things that we'll really be looking at for training camp when it gets here soon.
Just to post this picture up again, not just because it's a handsome picture of Blaine Gabbert, but Long Lost Laser says, is that pic from a weird angle or is Trask really that much bigger than Brady and Gabbert? I think Kyle Trask is a bigger guy. I think that he's probably about 10 pounds heavier. I'd look at the Bucs roster, but you really can't rely on that. I mean, they still have Tristan Wirfs at 320, and he's like, I played last year at 345. So I'm not even going to look into that. A lot of times the Bucs roster will just have the weight, like in Kyle Trask's case, the weight that he was when he was drafted, and that he'll probably have that weight on the roster for years, but he'll play differently. He's lost 10 pounds from a year ago, but I think he's kind of around 240. And I think Blaine Gabbert is in the 225 range, maybe 230. Brady's about 230 as well. I think Trask is a bigger guy naturally, and probably about a half inch taller than Gabbert. And Brady's kind of slouching there a little bit. But I think all three quarterbacks, there's not one guy that you would look at and say, he's the giant and he's the short guy or whatever. But that's what they're looking for, a pocket passer that has that ability to see over the line of scrimmage, 6'4", 6'5", and somebody that's big enough when you're in the pocket to take a little bit of a pounding if the O-line's not really having a great day.
Yeah, I mean, that's been the calling card for a very long time. And I know Bruce Arians isn't a coach anymore, but, his fingerprints on the offense obviously is still there. But if you go back, Bruce Arians had Ben Roethlisberger. Then he had Andrew Luck in Indy. And then, of course, in Arizona, this is where you bring in Byron Leftwich. And you had Carson Palmer there. And you come here, and it's Tom Brady. So, and
even Jameis, right? Jameis fit that mold. Yeah, 6'5". Jameis fit the mold there, 6'5", about 235. So
let me ask you, Scott, if you were to rank the other, Brady's number one in the NFC South. There's obviously no question there. But between Baker, Mariota, Jameis, we could throw Sam Darnold in there too. Yeah. How would you rank the rest of the quarterbacks in the NFC South?
From the expected starters, I would say Jameis second. This is a guy that he can put the ball in the end zone. I mean, there's no doubt about that. Yeah. I mean, he had 33 touchdowns, I think in 2019, 33 touchdowns, set the Bucs record single season touchdowns. Brady beat it the next year with 40 and then topped it again with 43. But Jameis Winston, when he gets hot, I mean, he's a dynamic arm. He's a dynamic talent. And the problem for him has always been just the penchant for turnovers, those crazy boneheaded plays. And if he can get that out of a system, he can be a pretty good player. And I liked him coming out of college way better than Marcus Mariota. And I think Mariota's a guy that's kind of dealt with some injuries too. I would say, especially because he's in Atlanta with Arthur Smith, where they're kind of on speaking the same language from their days in Tennessee together. I would say Mariota's probably number 2 on that list. And then, probably Baker Mayfield, just because he's going to be in a new system. We already know Bob McAdoo didn't like him coming out of college, the offensive coordinator in Carolina. So I think that's probably the order right there. And whether it's Mayfield or Darnold, I think Carolina probably has the worst quarterback situation out of those. I'm not a big believer in Marcus Mariota, but I just think because they're going to be running the heck out of the ball in Atlanta and probably do some RPO stuff, I think that's where Mariota thrives. And so I think if Mariota was in, say, Carolina, I would not like that fit at all, or New Orleans. But I think that he's in the right spot in Atlanta, and only a matter of time, I think, before Desmond Ridder gets on the field, and we'll see how Ridder's game translates to the NFL.
Yeah, Mariota was a Pro Bowl quarterback like years ago, obviously, but it showed that
he padded his stats against the Buccaneers in that season opener.
Yeah, of course, but it shows that at one point he did have at least enough success to get voted into the Pro Bowl, and I understand the Pro Bowl, a lot of guys drop out, and other guys come in.
Jameis Winston was a Pro Bowler his rookie season.
Yeah, there you go.
Like 4 quarterbacks dropped out, and so they just kind of moved him up the list.
Shows it's not as it's not even in the stratosphere of All Pro. But,
that's right. Well, I don't really have a cool segue, so I'm just going to say we're going to go to the Immuni Financial commercial here, folks. We're big supporters of Immuni Financial, and I'm going to tell you why after the commercial here. But one thing I do want to say is they would love to get some response from our audience, and they've gotten some, but they'd love to get some more. And I'll tell you what, I'm a Immuni Financial customer, and I've got almost all of my financial assets with Mark and David over there at Immuni, and I couldn't be happier with how they have managed my money, my retirement. And listen, there are some turbulent times right now with the economy, right, with the stock market, et cetera. And so you want some really experienced pros on your side.
At Immuni Financial, we help you live in the now.
Dude,
congratulations. We're so happy for you.
Thank you.
And even though the now may feel very different, you still need to plan for the future.
How's retirement treating you?
Oh, just fantastic.
I know I say it all the time, but you really got to come up to Colorado.
Let's do it.
All right.
Yeah.
We can help you develop that plan to keep you on track, so you can still prepare for tomorrow, today. Immuni Financial. Plan ahead, stay ahead.
Matt, whether you want to retire to Colorado or the Lake of the Ozarks or Florida or wherever, the folks at Immuni Financial can help you out. Why? Because they can help you plan ahead and stay ahead. Managing your family's wealth means more to Immuni Financial than simply allocating your assets. They're all about legacy planning and brokerage and advisory services, retirement accounts, of course, college savings accounts for your kids, and insurance services. They've got 40 years of experience doing this, folks. That's what I said before the commercial. And I mean, 40 years, that's a long time. Let Immuni Financial help you plan ahead and stay ahead. Give them a call at 1-800-868-6864 or visit them on the web at immuni.com.
Very well said.
You look lost in thought there.
No, I wasn't. I was just enjoying the ad read, of course. And
appreciate
it's
that.
important. Colorado may have hurt to go there like a week ago when the Avalanche won the Stanley Cup, but it's okay now. We've moved on. We've moved into the summer, and the Bolts will be back. But just to wrap everything up with this quarterback conversation here, the one thing that's the beauty of it is that this is all future Bucs problems with depending on what happens with Tom Brady this year.
Right.
But just to wrap everything up again, I really don't think Jimmy G is going to be the guy.
Yeah.
And I think another thing that we didn't even talk about too much is his play in the postseason. He's made it a couple of times. But the problem I have with Jimmy G, and we saw it with Jameis a little bit, where Jameis would just, try to make the ultimate play and end up in disaster. But Jimmy G tends to do that in the playoffs, in the
That
worst
Rams
time
game.
that you want to do that. The game against the Cowboys, when he threw that interception, just like, it was a layup, just soft little toss, and he throws it over the guy's head. I think, that fear that you always had with James, you're just waiting for the other shoe to drop. Like, oh, he's playing so great, but here comes the interception. I feel like you kind of get that with Jimmy G a little bit. And if you just look at his playoff runs, now the two big ones were 2019, again, when they went to the Super Bowl, and last season when they went to the NFC South, the NFC Championship game. All of these games, you go back to his first career playoff game, 131 yards. Next game, 77. That was the 8 pass attempt game against Green Bay. 219. Then you look at last season, 172, 131, 232. He's never had a 300-yard game. He has 4 touchdowns compared to 6 interceptions. He has a 5-2 record. That's very good. But again, it's not him.
That's the running game and the defense.
Leading his team in there. But 4 touchdowns to 6 interceptions. Not having a game over 232 yards. I don't know. I would rather just take my luck with someone else that we've mentioned in those situations.
I totally agree. It's gonna be interesting too because they drafted Trey Lance out there in San Francisco, and they're not high on Trey Lance at all. But they're gonna have to start Trey Lance at the beginning of the season because Jimmy Garoppolo's shoulder is not going to be ready to go probably until late September. So it will be interesting to see. What I'd like to see, my final thought on the Bucs quarterback situation is, back in 2020, the Bucs had more blowouts, right? They were healthier and they were blowing teams out. You go to that Raiders game, for example, the Lions game for sure, right? And so the Panthers game at the end of the season, right before the playoff run, the Packers game too, right? I mean, 38-7, and that game. So I'd like to see the Buccaneers, and it's going to be tough because they got a harder schedule this year in terms of their opponents. But when they have the opportunity to really step on some people, I'd like to see more Blaine Gabbert. I'd like to see more Kyle Trask if he's active on game day. But I'd like to see, you go back to that Lions game. I mean, Blaine Gabbert played the entire second half, completed 60% of his passes, threw a pair of touchdowns, and no interceptions. So I'd love to see some more garbage time for the backup quarterback, whether it becomes Gabbert or Trask, just to have a little bit more tape and in the arena, not just preseason, but like going up against starting caliber defenses. So easier said than done with the opponents on the schedule this year. But that's my hope and wish is that the Buccaneers will get in some of those situations where we can see a little bit more of either Gabbert or Trask and some less Tom Brady in there. And for example, if you go back to that 2020 season when the Saints were kicking the absolute crap out of the Buccaneers, right? 38-3, and he's stuck with Tom Brady the whole game pretty much. Like, I don't want to see Todd Bowles do that. Like at some point in time, get Tom out of there. If you're losing, you're on the other side of a blowout. It's going the wrong way.
I agree, Scott. That's very well put. I think you look at a couple games in 2021, and as great as this Bucs team is, I think there were times where it did seem like, okay, you have them on the ropes, hit them with the knockout, and they just didn't. I think some really good examples was, the Bills game. Remember, they were dominating the Bills at halftime, and I understand that might not be the best example of, okay, Blaine's going to get in the game. Right. That game should have never went to overtime. You know what I'm saying? Like, the lead that they had at halftime, no reason the Bucs should have won that game in overtime. That should have been in regulation. You look at that game against the Falcons when Brady threw the late interception at halftime. That should have been a game where the Falcons weren't even in the conversation of keeping it close. And then even the first playoff game against the Eagles, that game was a blowout. We were all expecting Blaine Gabbert to get in there. I had the tweet ready to go. I had it saved in drafts. Ladies and gentlemen, Blaine Gabbert has entered the game. But then the Bucs missed some tackles. The Eagles scored twice. And, it wasn't necessarily ever a situation where you're going to really worry about it too much. But again, that's a game where Blaine could have got in. Brady could have got a little more rest on the bench, but it wasn't the case. Bucs do a lot of great things, but they haven't always closed games out the way we would all like them to do it. And as you said, the schedule is very tough this year, but it doesn't mean that they won't be in that situation.
That's right. We want more Blaine Gabbert, folks.
Yes, we
Blaine
do.
Train in effect in 2023, probably. But let's not get ahead of ourselves. We got a full year of Tom Brady, and you know what? This was probably the best Pewter Report podcast we've ever done.
Everyone witnessed history.
I'm really good about it today. And the great thing is we have a chance to actually outdo this tomorrow. We actually have a chance to top today's podcast tomorrow. We invite you to join us at 4 p.m. Eastern time, where we're going to talk more Buccaneer football tomorrow. That's right, folks. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. Buccaneer content here on Pewter Report TV. Make sure you're subscribing, hitting the like button on all of our videos. So from Matt Matera, I'm Scott Reynolds, saying we'll see you for another edition of the Pewter Report podcast tomorrow.